today's, I think you all got the flyer and the invitation. We have Dr. P.J. Vasanthan here with us to talk to us about the colonial Nilgiris, the colonial heritage of the Nilgiris. One of the issues that, when people, of course, who are in the Nilgiris here may kindly bear with my stating so, because there are quite a few people here not from Nilgiris. So particularly for those who are not too familiar with Nilgiris history and its culture and heritage. As such, people come to Nilgiris for its weather and basically for its flora and fauna, for the mountains and the landscape, the natural landscape that we are blessed with. But, there's so much more to Nilgiris than its flora and fauna, its natural landscape. Nilgiri is also distinguished by its cultural landscape, by its social landscape. And that's what we are going to be focusing on in today's talks, with specific reference to the colonial past of Nilgiris. They the Nilgiris that we all associate with today as a hill station, that is basically a colonial invention. And, Nilgiri today as an urban center as well, again, it goes back to the days of the Raj, so to speak. So we have Dr. Vasanthan here. It's an old resident of Nilgiris, and he's a doctor by profession, but by passion, he's a lot of other things too. And I was just asking Dr. Vasanthan, how should I introduce you to people? So he just, a man of supreme humility and modesty, said, just introduce me as a jack of all trades and master of none. And but doctor is certainly, of course, he's a doctor, and he's also a master in so many other domains. And one mastery that he has is on Nilgiri history, particularly its colonial past. So that's one of the reasons I couldn't think of anyone better here in the Nilgiris to talk about its colonial heritage other than Dr. Vasanthan. So today he'll be taking us on a quick, you need a webinar of 2-3 days and more to actually to come to some concrete understanding, but we don't have that kind of luxury. So we'll be basically doing a quick presenting a good synoptic view of Nilgiri's colonial heritage with specific reference to Coonoor. And
thank you, Krishna. Very good morning to everyone. And first and foremost, I would like to thank the organizers of this webinar. Krishna, of course, the convener, and Samantha, co-convener, and Mrs. Geeta Srinivasan, the patron. Without further much ado, I think we can go on to the topic. Topic given for me today is colonial inheritance of the Nilgiri heritage. And in this case, the township of Coonoor. I think you may be unfamiliar about this district. For the benefit, I would say this small district which measures around 2,000 odd square kilometers lies in the southwest corner of the state of Tamil Nadu. The name Nilgiris is by itself intriguing. There will be two reasons. One, according to the one great antiquarian, Reverend Philip Valley, whom I think is online, the name could have been derived from the bright blue color of the Mukuttu peak as viewed from Kerala. Or there's another explanation. It could have been applied to a part of the district where a small fort complex stood. That was known as Neelachala. So anyway, coming to the Nilgiris, the capital is Ooty. It was once the summer capital of the state, the Madras Presidency. And The history of OT is very much well recorded. Very much well recorded. But unfortunately, Coonoor, the township of Coonoor was very much, what I can say, it goes very much to the, so small technical glitch, nothing else. As I said, I was saying the history of Ooty, which is the capital of this district, is very much well recorded actually. But unfortunately, that of Coonoor is not that well documented. And Coonoor played a vital role in the development of Otakamand as such. Previously, before the existence of Coonoor, people had to travel quite through a long way to reach Otakamand. So the history of Coonoor rests on the formation of a road. And this is what my talk is going to be all about. Now, this history is written all over, but lies piecemeal. And I've sort of compiled it together from what you can say early lithographs, journal entries, gazettes, watercolors, and a few photographs which one Mr. Christopher Penn was kind enough to give me. Those belong to his great-grandfather, A.T.W. Penn, who was sort of a pioneering photographer in the Nilgiris. So moving on to the next slide. This shows a map which was made in 1822. The Nilgiris originally belonged to the kingdom of Mysore under Tipu Sultan. And after the fall of Seringapatam, the entire area was ceded to the British. Again, it took some time for the British to take an interest in these hills, actually. They first sent one Dr. Buchanan, who made a tour, but he didn't completely enter the district. He came here around 1800s, came up to one place near present-day Keel Kotagiri, and just made a small report and went back. And after that, there were a couple of surveys. And in 1818, a couple of gentlemen came to this district and made a report to the then collector of Coimbatore, Mr. John Sullivan, about the climate and other things. After that, Sullivan came here himself, came up to Kotagiri, somewhere Dimbati near Kotagiri, and later the development of this district as a station started. And one Captain Ward was commissioned to make a map. So what I have in front of me is that map which was made in 1822. So now we are speaking about Coonoor. So in this map, you'll see Coonoor marked in red. Right now, Coonoor is where the area is marked in green. So Coonoor in those days in 1822, present-day Coonoor didn't exist. What was Coonoor was just a small Badga village, which once stood where the present-day residence of the commandant of the MRC now stands. It was only with the opening of this ghat that the township of Coonoor started to come into existence. So what was the necessity of opening this ghat? Ooty started as a sanitarium. It was not a tourist destination or a place where people went to relax. It was a place where sick soldiers and servicemen, came to convalescence. So it was first started as a sanitarium, and the route from Mettupalayam or Sirumugai, in fact, was round about one. It took a journey up to Kotagiri, then you had to halt in Kotagiri, and from Kotagiri the next day, they had to sort of go to Ooty. Now, in the 1830s, there was one governor after whom the Stephen's Church in Ooty is named, Stephen Rumbold Lushington. He just stood up near somewhere near Dodapata, saw this pass, and he just remarked, "You have got a straight pass which seems to be short. Why not cut a road through it?" And that started everything rolling. So around the 1832, the pass was started to be opened. And we heard about this pass in one book, which is titled as The Nilgiris, Nilgiris, which was compiled by one Dr. Bakey or Bake, who was a medical superintendent here in this district, published in 1833. So this map, which I'm showing, is taken from that book. Here it shows just one building. It's titled as Coonoor, Coonoor Bungalow, I think. Coonoor Bungalow. So this is where it all began, with a small traveler's bungalow for passing travelers who had climbed up the ghat, which was cut open by one Lieutenant Lehardy, belonging to the pioneers. And this building still stands today. It's the oldest building in Coonoor. It still stands today. This is the building. This is nothing but the present-day court complex. From Bakey's book, we hear that this building was used by travelers for, they could use it for maximum of 3 days. And it had a good repute till the 1840s. After that, it sort of fell into the disrepute. Later, it became a post office. Then it reverted back into a traveler's bungalow. Now it functions as a court. So this would have been the first and older, extant public building in Coonoor. So this is the ghat which is responsible for the growth of Coonoor. The first Metropolitan Ghat, or the first Coonoor Pass, this was a straight path. It was more of a cart track. More details about this can be read in one account by one Lieutenant Burton of the Bombay Army, to whom I'll be referring a little later. So this is the way the pass would have been. I would have appeared, say, somewhere around the 1830s or the 1840s. This is from a lithograph taken by one Captain Stephen Ponsonby Peacock. So this map was the lithograph was made in 1847 from the second milestone. The first milestone is still extant. And a year later, Dr. Benza, who was engaged upon a geological survey, he came up with his own geological map. Here again, you can see the small, Coonoor marked in its original location. So I'm not able to use the point on the full screen. You can see Coonoor over here and the traveler's bungalow over here. In addition, you can see some few markings known as, markings titled as pioneer lines. So as the ghat was being opened, the ghat was opened by, the corps of pioneers. So they were encamped over here. No other reference to any private residence or anything like that. So that we were just saying how everything progressed as from a stopover. Coonoor was initially a stopover. People came over here, stopped for a day. The next day they went for Ooty. So later in 1838, I had the fortune to get a another report made from another one, Dr. D. Birch or something. He was just derogatory about the whole thing. He dismisses Coonoor as anything such as a station. Says it can't go unnoticed because it had been a place of encampment for the sappers. But slowly things started to change actually. Now the ghat had come in and people started noticing that Coonoor had a milder climate than Ooty. And of course a better scenery also. So it started attracting a few settlers, and from land records, you can see somewhere around in the 1940s, early 1940s, we had 4 people over here living in Coonoor. One Mr. H.R. Dawson, a big game hunter. One Major General Kennett, a prominent person in Coonoor. Um, his house still stands. Another one, Major General Wahab. Wahab is not a Muslim name, it's a Welsh name, a corruption of a Welsh name. It's actually some one shop or something that the English corrupted it to Wahab and owned Mr. Norris. These had houses over here in Coonoor. And of course, around some 250 acres of coffee and mulberry seem to be have been under cultivation. So this is the start of the planters' settlement of Coonoor. Further corroboration can be had from this report made by one captain later who became Colonel Ochterlony in 1847. He described Coonoor as having a total of 397, a population of 397 with 7 European inhabitants, and he goes on to describe the town as being situated on a, what you can say, on the crest of the hills, on the rounded tops of the hills, with the native quarters, the bazaar and other things situated in the hollow below, which is present-day Lower Coonoor. He also speaks about a masonry bridge across the Coonoor stream and of a chatram for Indians. And again, plantation activities seem to have increased with the coffee cultivation on the increase, but mulberry somehow on the wane. So in corroboration to Ochterlony's statement, we have a sketch, the age-old sketch made in 1847 by one Lieutenant Burton, who gives a detailed report of how the Coonoor Ghat appeared when he traveled down from Mettupalayam, up from Mettupalayam to the station of Ooty. He was a lieutenant in the Bombay Army, and he has an account of his visit to this district in his book, which is entitled Goa, and the Blue Mountains. Here you get a early picture in the sketch over here. This Lieutenant Burton is none other than who later became Sir Richard F. Burton, a great Orientalist, I can say explorer of the Nile, translator of the Arabian Nights, and translator of Kama Sutra. His account is very interesting. Maybe the language is a little harsh, but anyway, we have to give allowances for that times. So in this sketch, you can see how early Coonoor looked like. Unfortunately, I'm not able to use the pointer at all. Anyway, just to go to the right-hand corner, you can see 2 buildings over there. One colored in white, another one is black. The black one was the earliest hotel. It was called as Davison. Lieutenant Burton talks in very good terms about it. And to the left of that black building, you can see one which is white. That is one of the oldest houses. That belonged to the Major General Kenneth, whom I was referring to. That was called as the Coonoor Lodge. The building still stands today, and it's the present-day headquarters of the, Incosa. The hotel, which was known as Davison, later became Glenview, and later housed the Upasi, and unfortunately it was burnt down. Lieutenant Burton's sketch is supposed to have been taken from the drawn from the traveler's bungalow. And it also shows a market in the hollow below, part of the market, other European houses which we're not able to clearly identify. And of course, the pioneer lines which border the Coonoor River, where you can see it in the bottom portion of the map. So Ochterlony's survey speaks about a masonry bridge. This is an early watercolor showing the same bridge. Of course, I think people over here will be familiar with the present-day Coonoor Bridge, an ugly concrete structure. But this one was a beautiful structure. It seems to be a Roman arch bridge. And on the left, you see the chatra for the Indians. The Europeans used to stay in the travelers' bungalow and the Indians in the Chatram before proceeding to Ooty. This bridge continued to exist for more than 100 years. This is a later day picture made by one Mr. A.T.W. Penn, which shows the bridge, the same Roman arch structure from the other side. It should have been taken in the 1870s. We were fortunate enough to find the foundations of the bridge during one of our river cleanups. So till then, we can say Ooty was just a planter's, Coonoor was just a planter's settlements. And then when did it start to become what I can say a station or a sort of a planter's town? The beginning should have been 1851, with the first church being built over here. I won't touch on the topic of the churches in this church in detail, but I consider this church as a turning point because for English society, the church is very much the same as the manure shop or the tea shop, present-day tea shop, or the village tank or something would have been in rural India. So this was the first church, and its foundation stone was laid down on 3rd September 1851. So we can take this as the starting point of the beginnings of the modern day town. So anyway, having touched upon the church, the name of the church is now All Saints Church, but earlier it was known as General Kenneth Church because it was the Major General Kenneth who donated the land for this church. It's a beautiful structure built in Neo-Gothic style. The interiors are equally beautiful. And this is the earliest sketch of the church, which was made by one, I think, George Hutchins Belasses, I think, a watercolor. Here he names it General Kenneth's Church. This was made in 1852, sorry. It shows the tower of the church on the west and the altar on the east. But unfortunately, due to heavy rains, it appears that the tower seems to have fallen down. And this is a early photograph of the church after it was rebuilt with the tower on the west and the altar on the east. It seems to have quite a beautiful gateway with the rose embowered archboard. Unfortunately, all these have gone down. The surroundings are quite bare, with a few cypresses being planted over there. But now the cypresses have grown quite in size, and you won't get a view of this church from outside. So that is the churchyard boasts some very important graves. Again, I think Reverend Namali will be taking care of this. So I'll just sort of skip this slide. So that is the tomb of Major General Kenneth, who donated the land for the church. He was murdered in his residence, which is just opposite to the house, the church, and he's buried inside the church and all of the earliest graves. Slowly, we had one hotel, which was known as Davison. Other hotels started coming up. The earliest of such in the modern sense would have been Grace. It was previously called the Union Hotel, later became Grace, named after its owner, Mr. Charles Gray. This man, in addition to being a hotelier, was quite active in the development of the town. He's known to have donated land for a small public park over here, which I'll be soon touching on. And his son is known to have donated land for the Coonoor Library. So this is one of the second hotel in Coonoor. Next, we have seen a hotel, we have seen a church, we have seen a society on the go. Next, the need of a school arose, and here one planter known as Thomas Staines, he established the first school in Coonoor. And that's an early photograph of the school. Now I think this houses this hostel. The building has much increased. Buildings are much increased in number. This is nothing but Staines High Secondary School, which was first meant for Europeans and Eurasians. Now, admits the local populace, and of course attracts people from outside also, outside districts also. So we saw what I can say, a church come into existence, a small a school, another hotel, and of course we had a public park. The area was just known as Fountain Memorial, a beautiful spot. Again, the area for this public park was donated by the same hotelier, Mr. Gray. The fountain was built at the expense of one Reverend Fox, I think, Fox, I don't know, who was a botanist. He was active here from 1855 to 1860. So probably this fountain came into existence around that period. It is now still in existence. Now it is called as Horton Park. Horton Park, named after one municipal commissioner. This is 1860 picture, 1880 picture of Horton's Park, or the same fountain in memory. A lot has changed, a lot of buildings have come around. But anyway, in its present state, right in 2020, it's really, what I can say, totally unrecognizable, even though it's still there. Now, coming back to education, after the school, and somewhere in 1864, Coonoor acquired a library. It was not known as Coonoor Library, and those days it was known as Coonoor Library and Reading Room. It functioned in a rented building, which now houses the building which I have shown here is the building where the library used to function. It is now a store, a sports store to be exact. And this is the present day building. The library, a lot of other structures have come around it, but the basic structure still remains the same. And the library has quite some interesting history, actually. It shifted to the club somewhere around the 1890s. And later, out of the land donated by the same Gray, not the same Gray, his son, independent structure was put up. It was a huge structure. The cost of the building was raised through debentures, sale of debentures. And it was a two-story building with the entrance facing the road being the top story. And I have a photograph, not a very good one, of the Coonoor Library. It was not called the Coonoor Library. It became a registered society. This should have been taken around 1880s. It was maintained then. Unfortunately, the fate of the building is this at the present state. We are trying to sort of revive this library and bring it back to life. So we've seen Coonoor's library, and the next point of interest would be the boom in the plantation industry. This happened around 1860 to the period was 1860 to 1866. Under the government's new forest policy, a lot of forest land was opened up for planting, and plenty of coffee plantations came into existence. Like you can see tea and coffee over here. This is Benout Estate, situated right on the Coonoor Ghat. And with the boom in coffee, started other enterprises. So the town started sort of expanding westwards. This is one very old cottage on the West Coonoor. Previously, development had been confined to the east, but now Coonoor started moving to westwards. And that the photograph which is shown in the left corner is one Kingston cottage which still stands. It is right now the Balaclava telephone exchange. And on the top right, you can see one of the earliest bakeries. It was called the Nilgiri Bakery. Should have come into existence somewhere around 1866. And of course, with the plantation industry needing machinery and such things, there came an ironworks. Both the bakery and the ironworks were owned by one person, and stood right where the present day railway station stands. They no longer exist. I mean, they had to give way for the railway station. So this town started expanding westwards somewhere around the 1860s. It not only started expanding westwards, again, this is here where we can see Indian enterprise coming into the plantation sector. Of course, there are a lot of Indians who owned shops, owned businesses prior to 1860. But with this boom, Indians started investing in plantations. There was one Minji Seth over here in Coonoor. And this entire property appears to be his, which was part of Upper Tiger Rock Estate and Runnymede. And he had two bungalows over here, Vasanthan and Runnymede. Vasanthan is in the far distance to the left and Runnymede on the right. On the right. Almost the entire valley seemed to have belonged to him. And of course, both these buildings and these estates, they still exist right now. So the boom gave Indians much more opportunities. And with the boom in coffee, plantation activities, growth in the population, more buildings coming up, public institutions being opened up, the old road was found not to be enough. And the new road had to be laid for better communication. The main reason, the old road was just fit for bullock-drawn traffic. You couldn't have horse-drawn carts over here. Now, of course, one could ride horseback, but the gradient was so steep in places, say, around 1 and 8, that it had to be relayed with a more easy gradient to make it viable if horses had to pull carriages up to Coonoor. So what happened is they sort of relayed this old Metropolitan Road or the Metropolitan Ghat, and that's the present day Coonoor Ghat, which we use in our daily lives now. It's a beautiful road. The only thing they had to relay with a lot of hairpin bends, but the gradient was reduced to 1 in 16. And now the road admitted faster Tongas, Victorias, which are horse-drawn, and of course, faster and more comfortable. So there's a very old picture of that same road taken from the Coonoor town side, again by Mr. A.T.W. Penn, the pioneering photographer of the Nilgiris. And these are a few photographs of the office which show the road as it was in the 1870s. This is a small bit about Barlia, with a couple of falls, a small cascade with a wooden bridge. The other one shows the bullock carts which come to the shanties every day. The third is a small bend in the road. All these are almost the same, except that the road has been widened now. In those days, it was, I think, around 10 to 15 feet in width. So with the coming of the road, carrying companies, operated Tongas, Victorias came into existence. And of course, with the advent of carrying companies, previously the postal system to the district was through runners, the Tabal runners. The Tabal runners no longer became were no longer useful because the Tongos replaced them. They were faster and could carry much more. So with this road in the 1870s and 1880s would have been the heyday of the carrying companies. And one carrying company had its headquarters and its refreshment room in Coonoor, just Cash Bazaar, in Cash Bazaar near the present day railway station. This is again one photograph which shows a Victoria near the refreshment room of the Madras carrying company. So with people coming in, the road being relayed, transport becoming easier, now people started to turn around for entertainment. So this is where the club began. It started as a small affair. in a small, with a couple of tennis courts and a small building in the 1870s. Later in the 1890s, it functioned as a rented building before it moved on to the present site. So the one on the left is a sketch made of the club from a very old photograph, and the next photograph on the right shows the present day club as a, in its present state. Other sorts of entertainment at those times seem to have been sketching. Of course, there was Sims Park came into existence around 1872, and people began to socialize more and more. Again, in the 1880s, there was a shift in the planting sector. There was a shift to tea. Previously, coffee was mainly grown in Coonoor. I'm seen from the old report of 1840s itself. It was coffee and not tea. Even though there was one report made by a Baron Hungel, who was a botanist, that tea cultivation was suitable in Coonoor. People didn't take it up seriously because tea is more labor intensive. Coffee had more time. The planter had more time to relax. He just had two seasons, one bumper and one ordinary. But tea had to be plugged almost on a, what you can say, daily basis. If it's a large plantation, had to be processed there itself, unlike coffee. And it was much more difficult. But later, people shifted to tea for two reasons. One, coffee began to get infested with the borer insect, which wiped out many plantations. Next, tea started fetching prices. In Britain, Nilgiri tea started getting a mention. So people started shifting over to tea. So this is one of the earliest of tea plantations situated near Coonoor. I can see a tramway over there where how plucked tea from one hill was transported through a ropeway to another before being taken to a factory and sort of processed. And in the 1890s, I would say this is a time when Coonoor became sort of a tourist attraction. There were plenty of rest homes for missionaries were coming up, and missionaries from the plains of all over India came over here to Coonoor to rest up. The photograph which I'm showing is one such Brooklands. It still exists now. And one Lady Wenlock, who was the wife of Governor Wenlock, she broke all convention by avoiding 2 summer seasons in Ooty and staying in this very same building in Coonoor. Now people wanted to travel much more faster than what can be horse-drawn or horseback, and that meant a railway. So that is how the Nilgiri Railway came into existence, our present UNESCO heritage site. Now, the railway dates back right to 1854. They had plans for it, but some serious thinking only began somewhere around 1870s. But it was only in the late 1890 that a railway company was opened. After work was commenced on the railway, but after much problems, the line was finally thrown open in 1899. What is there on the right is what I can say coat of arms of the Nilgiri Railway Company. It shows the Nilgiri Mountain Railway, the engine, the steam engine, climbing up the steep incline. It's got Latin, what I can say, I would say that should be a motto or something, which says Sic itur ad Ooty. Of course, the first railway line stopped at Coonoor. After that, people had to take tongos to go to Ooty. But still, their final destination was Ooty. So it says Sic itur ad Ooty. I think it's an adaptation of Virgil's Sic itur ad Astra. thus one journeys to the star. In this case, thus one journeys to Uttagamanda or Uti or something like that. So the field, you have 4 sections. Left bottom is the earliest mode of transportation and communication by buggy. That you can see on a native carrying a buggy with the 2 parcels up some steep pass up a foot track. The one on the field on the left top shows the first ghat. Right top shows the pioneers who opened the first ghat. And the bottom right shows the second Coonoor ghat. And of course, you got another Latin motto which says that something like vestigia nulla retrosternum or something. I'm not very fluent in pronouncing Latin, but that means that never a step backward. So this was the railway coat of arms of the Nilgiri Railway. And this is, of course, a much familiar mountain railway train at which had color, a very old photograph. Later, Coonoor attracted the attention of the scientific community also. In those days, rabies was sort of a dreaded disease with not much of a cure except for vaccination. And that vaccine couldn't be produced anywhere just like that in a hot tropical country. North India had its own past institute where this vaccine was produced, and people used to go over there and get vaccinated in case they had a dog bite. South India had no such luck. And it was one American philanthropist who made available funds for creating a vaccine institute, a past institute for South India. He gave his money to the then Viceroy Curzon. I think he's a much maligned and hated Viceroy in all of British India, but I beg to differ. He was much enlightened. Maybe his manner was arrogant, but he was a person who was instrumental in preserving most of India's monuments. He introduced the bill, which, what can I say, which goes like Protection of Ancient Monuments Act or something. He's one very famous viceroy who was well liked by Indians, is known to have auctioned off the Shah Jahan's bath. But Curzon, in fact, you can see he saved the Taj Mahal. So Curzon immediately selected Coonoor as a site for the passage because of the climate. And the institute started functioning from the 25th of April 1907. And right now, it is the leading major producer of anti-rabies vaccine for this country. In 1910s to 1947, we can see an increased, participation of Indians in the affairs of Coonoor. Of course, with the opening of the Coonoor Urban Cooperative Bank, the cooperative movement, where one Englishman, Nicholson, was involved. And of course, we had a prominent Badaga figure over here who we can say spearheaded the cooperative movement. In 1933, Gandhiji is known to have visited this place, Coonoor. He stayed in Mount Pleasant. That house is still there, but it has been slightly much altered now. And by 1941, Coonoor, which had become a municipality, was headed entirely by Indians. So this is from where we can see that we had the entire municipal council was headed by Indians. There was one B. Samana, who was the chairman. Another one, Karnakara Menam, who was the commissioner. And the municipal engineer was one, Mr. Rao, who was again an Indian. So Indianization had started to take place. By the way, Samana was the first elected chairman to be an Indian. There's a small park dedicated in his name, Samana Park. So this almost about concludes my talk on the Coonoor heritage of the Raj. So people may ask, what is the role played by the Raj in the development of this town or elsewhere? Maybe I would say that our legacy rests entirely on the Raj, whatever their motives have been. It was the Raj which gave us the road, the first educational institutions, our way of life, and of course, economic also. I have deliberately put this picture over here. Coonoor started cultivating tea. A lot of tea plantations came up, auction centers came up, and now we have, I would say, two governing bodies. One private, the Upasi, and another one is the INCOSA, the cooperative. And this should have been somewhere around 1955, post-independence, when the Russian Premier and Party General Secretary both visited Coonoor just to take a look at the tea industry. This gave a definite boost to the district's economy. So without this planters town over here, which served as an access to Ooty and later became an economic hub, I don't think this district would have become one of the major hill stations in South India, and Uttarakhand would ever have been named as a queen of hill stations. I think it's quite late, and I think I'll sort of conclude my speech to this. I don't think I made my points quite clear because this is the first time I'm doing a Zoom meeting or a webinar or something. So I think, any questions?
Yeah. Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Vasanthan. That was very, very enlightening and very concise and precise. But of course, I suppose it will take quite a bit of time. You know, there was already in the short presentation, there was so much to actually understand and discern. And that will take quite some time for most of us here to, you know, digest it and, you know, be more cognizant of the insights that you gave. So thank you very much, Dr. Vasanthan. So I straight away, Reverend Mully has this rejoinder. I'll just read out. Or would Reverend, can he be brought online, Ranjini or Faisal, if you're there? Maybe Reverend can talk directly and to Dr. Vasanthan.
Hi, Krishna. This is Ranjini on behalf of Reverend Mully. So I think he shared the comments that he wanted to. So he says it's fine if you read it out. I can put him on video nonetheless, but like I think he's fine.
Hello. Yeah.
He's
you
fine.
Can. Yeah. No. If you can, you know, it would be lovely to see Reverend Mully, you know, and for others also to have a glimpse of. Yeah, there he is. Reverend, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Reverend. You can post this, your point to Doctor directly. He's.
Only thing is, I don't want to keep on expanding on whatever I have jotted down to you, but it's just an additional information which I think would be of some use. Is that all right, Krishna?
Yeah. Perfectly, Reverend. Please go ahead.
So, Dr. Vasanthan, of course, congratulations again on I think a very carefully prepared presentation. So let me just read out what I have sent to you. I wish to add the following information on the so-called original site of Coonoor. The suffix "ur" in Badaga is never used to identify a spatial site as well known in Dravidian taxonomy. To be brief, Ur or Ur is an ancestral cult site And in this case of the Kunna, that is youngest progenitor, Kunna Hettappa of the 7 traditional forefathers of a certain Patrick clan of their Porangadu territory. Shrine maintained by the Badagas right across Sims Park on the Kotagiri Road. The original site was Coonoor Hane. Hane means meadow, so it's meadow of the cult site. The association of the barrack site is not confined to Coonoor alone, reported in this presentation, but mostly to Jagadala village as well as to that of Thodas. So it is an entirely different story. We have no time for that. So the original Coonoor site belonged to the Kodamalai folk of the Badagas, and they are still in charge of their ancestral shrine I have mentioned, and which is situated on the Kotagiri Road. I think that's all. And I mean, it's just an added information. Otherwise, I think we are very grateful to Dr. Vasanthan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reverend. Doctor, would you like to care to respond anything to that, to the point?
No, actually, I agree with Reverend, actually. He has he's much more knowledgeable than me, actually.
Of course, we are
Of
all
course,
here.
we didn't touch on the, old Badaga, old Coonoor, because that goes to Wellington. I just wanted to confine myself just to Coonoor.
Right. No, that's a point well made, Reverend. Thanks for your inputs.
Anyway, I mean, I wanted to add the information, that's all.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's most welcome of you. And so, if there are any other, since I think we have enough time still on our hands. If there are anyone else who's interested in raising any questions or any clarifications or any rejoinder, please, you can raise your hands and we will unmute you, and you can even come online and make your point. Anyone? Okay. So,
So there's a question in the chat box.
hello.
In the chat box, I can see it.
The question is, when was the army cantonment established?
Army cantonment should have been established. Which army cantonment? Otio. Army cantonment work began in 1852 in Jagadala. The earliest report showed us the cantonment of Jagadala, not as cantonment of Wellington. Should have been completed around 1855, I think. It had a barracks. Hello. It was a barracks, maybe. It was not a Madras regimental center then. It was just a barracks where soldiers who arrived from England were quartered over there to get acclimatized to the tropical climate. It came up much later, 1855, and from 18, I think it should have been named as Wellington in 1855. The bridge, Black Bridge, has Waterloo Bridge, and the other bridge has Victoria Bridge. I think Reverend Malik can add some more information regarding this.
Yeah. Reverend, yeah, you can come online, Reverend.
I can add more information during my presentation in the coming week.
Okay, fair enough. That question was actually about Wellington from Professor Susan Vishwanathan from JNU.
For somebody else, I just read it to you.
No, that was from Professor Susan. Professor Susan, would you like to come online and raise, because you are already on the way of doing some research in the Nilgiris. So if you want to raise anything more pertinent and specific, you are unmuted. You can raise your query here.
Yes, the question was by another participant, so I saw it on the chat box. And
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Perfume and fragrance industry. Is there any information of that?
Perfume and fragrance industry.
There. No, not to my knowledge.
Professor Susan, that was your query?
I was just curious about whether there was any attempt at chronicling that.
The perfumes and...
No, not to my knowledge. I don't think Coonoor had any perfume industry as such.
Probably are you referring to the distillation industry, the kind of eucalyptus oil, chinchona oil that we associate and we come to the Nilgiris to shop, probably.
Yes, so I was curious because I think the organic farming, Sims Garden, the whole space which has been set up in terms of looking at the Nilgiris as a hinterland. I was curious about that.
You got that question, Doctor?
Can you repeat the question?
My question, the Nilgiris as a hinterland and the fact that there is an organic farming.
Organic?
Farming.
Farming occupation.
Organic on farm. Actually, scientific farming. I can't confine myself to Coonoor in that regarding that question. Scientific farming was started by one General Morgan in Ooty. He is considered to be the father of scientific farming as far as this is concerned. There's no specific person in Coonoor as such.
Sims Garden, I think, represents a botanical space.
Botanical garden. See, before the botanical garden came into existence, there were other government gardens. But I think we are diagnosing from Coonoor actually. There was a garden in Kalati. There was a garden in Keti. Botanical garden came much later. It was an experimental garden, nothing great. The present day garden with its flower show, other things, should have come around 1910. Are we referring to Sims Park over here?
Yes, to Sims Park.
Sims Park was started as a private enterprise by one Mr. J.D. Sim. He started laying it out, and in the middle, the government took over, and it hasn't got anything to do with agriculture or horticulture. It's just an ornamental garden with a lot of trees, which has been brought from all over. Sim took a great interest in there, and the others, I would say one H. Butcher or someone who was superintendent over there. He brought in a lot of trees. That's the history.
Thank you.
Okay. Reverend Mali would like to add another point. Reverend, can you...
Viswanathan, Dr.
yeah.
Viswanathan's observations.
Yeah.
We actually have...
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Somebody is not unmuted. Just hold on, Reverend. Yes, Reverend. Yeah, you can.
To Dr. Susan Viswanathan's query, We really don't have much information on what Dr. Susan Viswanathan is trying to ask. But then I just want to add, this General Kennedy, who was assassinated at Coonoor and who was kind of the founder of All Saints Church, was a great horticulturist. From whatever notes we have about him in some
Okay.
reports. That's all we have, but I think no one has really delved deeper into what he has done or what we have done.
Follow that up about Kenneth in the National Archives.
Yes, Professor Susan?
Can one follow that up in the National Archives about Kenneth?
Okay.
Well, possibly so, Dr. Susan Viswanathan.
It was a very useful talk, and I'm very, very grateful to have been invited, Krishna. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Professor. Thanks for joining us. So we have one question from BT Narsimha. Yeah, on the market, he's asking if there are any documentation or study done on the Coonoor market.
1847, Colonel Nilgiris report. That mentions a shandy market. Prior to that, 1833, Bakey's report, where he just says a few shops will supply at that. And later, 1847, Colonel Octroloni's report. And then later, we have to depend on the gazettes. After Coonoor became a municipality, the municipal market came into existence. And it is pertinent to point out, in 1908, it is reported as the third highest grossing municipal market in the entire Madras presidency, next to Trichinopoli, Ooty, came Coonoor.
Hello,
Hi.
Dr. Vasanthan. Good afternoon.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
Dr. Rosary Lima from Providence College. I belong to Botany Department.
Ah.
It was a pleasure to hear from you and see the clippings and paintings. It was wonderful to see the fact about Nilgiris and its development from the colonial period. And I do have one or two doubts, though I know a little bit about the Nilgiris vegetation. Especially, I would like to ask about the eucalyptus, how it has been introduced, on what aspect it has been introduced.
Eucalyptus was a mistake, actually.
Yeah.
See, there was a pressure on the shoulders for firewood. Can you hear me? There was a pressure on the shoulders for firewood as the settlements grew. Now we are coming through the district now, back to. So eucalyptus and wattle were just introduced as fast-growing trees to meet the needs of the fuel demand. Initially, the road margins, public spaces, something like that, they were filled with it. And a few acres were planted over with planting eucalyptus and wattle. It was just meant for firewood alone and nothing else. There was no other significance in planting eucalyptus. This should have started somewhere around 1850s. I think the person who brought the seeds, I forgot his name anyway. By 1880s, planting was stopped. Not in public places and reserved land anymore, because they found out that eucalyptus had a sort of deleterious effect on soil moisture. Plantations, private plantations existed. People started planting in a small scale. And by 1900s, the total acreage in the district, which was planted over the eucalypti and wattle, should have been just 1,000 odd. The mistake came post-independence. I would like to make this clear. It came post-independence in the 1950s and 60s, where entire tracts of grassland and marshland were converted into eucalyptus plantations for no reason whatsoever. The
That's
British
very true, in fact. But out of curiosity, I've been asking because there has been lots of discussion was going on regarding this
yes, of
eucalyptus
course.
plant as a exotic plant, which really destroys the indigenous species.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
definitely, once it was said that due to eucalyptus, only water shortage was there in Nilgiris.
Not only
And
water shortage,
exact, yeah,
it's also soil erosion is also there. These
yeah,
roots do not
exactly.
hold the soil, bind the soil at all. Another
Yes,
thing, both eucalyptus and wattle have the property of sort of secreting allopathic material,
yes,
which when dissolved in the surface wash, discourage any sort of native growth.
exactly.
Maybe some other exotic may grow, but not
Yeah.
so we have altered an entire landscape, and I don't know how they're going to reverse this. Uh, See what I can say, the kundas, a part of the kundas, avalanche, for example, used to receive 500 centimeters of rainfall in those days. And here now, because of the change in alteration landscape, it couldn't even withstand a spell of 100 centimeters. Last year, the year before last, I think. And the entire shola was washed away. I think I'm just digressing from.
No, but these are very, very, very relevant, doctor. I mean, all germane to the Nilgiri heritage, natural or ecological or cultural. So, such some digressions are always welcome, and it only enlightens us more. So, yeah, thank you so much, your doctor. And yeah, is there any other question, ma'am? Any,
Thank you.
Ms. Rose?
Thank you, sir. Actually, I thought because the vegetation plays a very important role in preserving the nature, I mean, the environment of Nilgiris. So how are we going to revive the indigenous plant since these are the key factor for restoring the biodiversity? So is there any possibility to revive that? Of course,
Yeah, there's a possibility.
there
There's
were
always
certain
possibility.
movements.
Nature left alone cures herself. This is a lesson which we at Coonoor found out when we took up a small marshland near Edapalli for regeneration. We didn't do much. Actually, removed exotics, prevented overgrazing by fencing up the area, and what was just what I can say, invasive weeds and invasive grass soon turned out to be a sedgeland with a lot of improvement in the quality of water. But unfortunately, we need public participation for this, and of course, public cooperation. People start relating in cows again and again, so we have to sort of lay hold on the project. But anyway, we are trying to start it again. It is possible, but it has to be done in a step-by-step manner.
Yeah, exactly. We need to do quite a lot of research on this. What will be the impact when we start removing this, and what we will replace instead of that? Because we can very well see the difference, in for the past 10 to 15 years of time, we do see the impact of this eucalyptus. So maybe we have to do little more research on this. Yeah, maybe the NGOs and other organizations are there. They can really think about this. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Ms. Rose. Actually, in my introduction, I actually failed to mention one very important thing about Dr. Vasanthan. He also heads this NGO called the Clean Coonoor.
No, not heads.
I mean, he's again being very modest. So he and including Samantha and many other volunteers of Coonoor have played a very important role. If today Coonoor looks so much clean and tidy and neat, I think a lot of credit goes to the Coonoor municipality, of course, but I think Dr. Vasanthan's organization, Clean Coonoor, has a major role to play. And people who are familiar here, I don't think I need to say more. You know, he has been an inspiration and quite an icon. And I'm sure if there are others here from outside Nilgiris, there is a lot to learn from the organization Clean Coonoor about urban waste management and how volunteers and voluntary approach can do wonders to the upkeep of any place. And of course, Coonoor municipality, we always run government organizations down, and they have also been quite active and collaborating with Clean Coonoor. And it's a mutual complementary association. Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Rose. And if there are any further questions, I think we can bring this talk to a conclusion. I just, a few, before we sign off, can I just ask Ms. Geeta Srinivasan, like I said, she has been helming Intact Nilgiris for good many years. And I will just request Ms. Geeta Srinivasan to just propose a vote of thanks and also to tell us something more about her work with Intact Nilgiris. And before that also, people, we are also on Instagram, intachnilgiris, that's our handle. Please do check out our postings. And we are on email, intachnilgiris@gmail.com. So we are still a very small organization. Our bandwidth, financial as well as manpower is extremely narrow and limited. We welcome members. If you're curious and interested, please do send us a line, intachnilgiris@gmail.com, and do check our Instagram handle, intact@nilgiris in Instagram. And just to, before I hand over the mic to Geeta ma'am, we are having this series of talks on Thursday. It will be a talk on the churches and the Christian heritage of Nilgiris by none other than Reverend Mali. And he will enlighten us much more, but with specific reference to the Christian heritage of Nilgiris, and which really stands out and which needs to be taken cognizance of. That will be on Thursday. I'll be sharing the invite and the flyer in different groups in a couple of days' time. Please be on the lookout. So, Geeta ma'am, can I just have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're ready to roll. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. No, can you see me?
Yeah. We can.
You can see me because I can't see you.
That's because I don't really have a very fancy face, so I have kind of maybe.
Okay. No. That makes it easier for me. I won't feel so nervous.
Okay.
Today is really a red letter day for Intact Nilgiris. We have truly gone digital, and what better person to open the program than Dr. P.J. Vasanthan. He has done an outstanding job, and I felt very nostalgic because I remember my paternal grandparents. We have been a Nilgiris family for over 100 years, and they used to bring up provisions in bullock carts. In fact, I have an old account book of my grandmother where she has written about maintenance of bullock carts and bulls. So this was a very interesting thing. And in the same way, I would like to tell you another funny story. My friend Lucky Sumukadas, her grandparents, because we have this annual Shraddham or for our ancestors, and we need to feed crows. And what Lucky's grandfather did, he caught hold of a crow and brought it in a cage all the way to the Nilgiris. Maybe this was the start of the crow population in this place. So Dr. Vasanthan, thank you so much. You're truly a Renaissance personality. As a civic activist, you've been one of the founders of Clean Coonoor, and of course Krishna has told you about it. And I think all of us in the Nilgiris know about the outstanding work that both you and Samantha have done. An extraordinary scholar, a medical doctor, and I believe your bird photography is also very fantastic. And maybe one of these days we'll have your slideshows on your birds. Thank you so much for coming here. We could not have thought of a better person to inaugurate our digital program. So thank you so much for being with us here. We have a very dynamic duo. Krishna and Samantha, and co-convener, who have made this possible. Many thanks to them and all the participants, particularly Reverend Mali, who came in with his we are looking forward to your talk, sir, and your great knowledge. Thank you for enlightening us on so many things. And the interesting question and answer session. Thank you to all our participants. Intact Nilgiris, we have been here for the past 20 years. We have worked towards conserving the architectural, tribal, and natural heritage of the Nilgiris. And many people have come to me and said, why conserve British architecture? What is the importance? But then history is always something which runs like a river. We can never stop it. And what the British did for the Nilgiris is really something which can never be forgotten, as Dr. Vasanthan also mentioned. And we are fortunate in the Nilgiris because this is one place which, unlike other hill stations, the British architecture hasn't been destroyed. We still have a lot to conserve. And of course, there are also private buildings. And unlike the National Trust in England, we don't help to conserve the private buildings. For instance, I spent an enormous amount of money on my house, Sunningdale, which is about 150 years old. But I don't get any tax exemption or any property tax exemption. And I think unless we give some exemptions to private people and owners, this heritage may also disappear. Fortunately, we have people like Dr. Vasanthan who have brought this to the fore, and of course, Reverend Mali, who have also been working very hard to conserve this very precious architecture. One of the iconic works that we did was preserving the 150 years Nilgiris library. Intact has restored the heritage library, the wardrobe room, and the fiction room. We've also put up heritage boards in the library, Breek School, Botanical Gardens, and various other places. Over these past 20 years, we have worked mostly in the Ooty region, but we look forward now with people like Krishna and Samantha and more members. We would like more members to join from the Coonoor area. And we would really like to start more work in conserving and bringing awareness about Coonoor heritage. We were also part of the many meetings which led to the Nilgiri Mountain Railway being declared a World Heritage Site. And one of our landmark achievements has been the prevention of the demolition of the district court and MacIver Fern House in the Botanical Gardens. During the 100-year centenary of the Botanical Gardens, believe it or not, they were going to demolish the MacIver Fern House, which is really a masterpiece of Victorian architecture. Many of you may not know there's an intricate system of pipes over there. And in the old days, it was like a regular spray because ferns don't need too much water. And I hope with Intact's involvement, we can restore this fern house to its original glory. Recently, we have also collaborated on a book on the built history of Coonoor and Ooty. This was compiled by Dr. Suresh, who is state convener, Tamil Nadu. On the environmental front also, we have not lagged behind. We took part in the Guinness record for tree planting along with other organizations, and we were acknowledged by Guinness with the certificates. We also worked with students and taken them on guided tours of Longwood Shola to bring awareness of the importance of Shola grassland ecosystem. We've also held workshops to train teachers, mainly from government schools, on heritage conservation. And our work with tribals has also been quite impressive. We work closely along with Dr. Tarun Chabra, who is a renowned Toda expert, and we have helped to build their temples and part in their annual migration. While museums abroad are used as a center for disseminating information and center for education, unfortunately in India, we don't give much importance to museums. With these ideas in mind, we helped to put together the Cine Museum in the assembly rooms. And we were also responsible for the principal's home in Stonehouse, Government Arts College, for it being converted into the Connemara Museum. Unfortunately, nothing much has been done here. And this is where I think we in TAC can get involved and see that they put up a proper exhibits. And we've been also involved with the restoration of the John Sullivan Memorial at Kanarimuku. To our over 20 decades, our activities, I think, have been quite varied and impressive. We have helped to preserve tribal, architectural, and the natural heritage of the Nilgiris and to bring awareness. But we also need your participation. We need more membership. So on behalf of INTAC, I request more of you to come forward and become life members and help us in this great venture of preserving the Nilgiris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Geeta ma'am. Thanks a lot. Like I mentioned, we will be having the next talk on Thursday, that is the 24th from 4 o'clock. The details, kindly await the details. In another day or two, it should be online. And we look forward to your continued support and participation in these talks and other activities which Geeta ma'am also has suggested. We need to take that for, we certainly need to take it up, but like I mentioned, we need more patronage, financial as well as in terms of membership. INTAC is purely a voluntary organization, right? Its head office is in Delhi, but the chapters, INTAC chapters across the rest of the country, they are run purely on voluntary basis, based on the ability, mobilization ability, financial and logistics and people in different chapters. So the success of INTAC ultimately will depend on the support we get from people in Nilgiris, well-meaning people in Nilgiris. So there's so much, in Nilgiris which is hitting your eye. The natural heritage, cultural heritage, architectural heritage, the language, the folklore, and so much more needs to be documented. A lot has been documented already, if not by INTAC, by a lot of other groups and scholars, but a lot more needs to be done, and a lot more awareness has to be engendered regarding particularly the cultural historical heritage of Nilgiris. There are quite a few groups working on the natural heritage, ecological restoration, like Clean Coonoor or Keystone. But we don't have too many organizations looking at the restoration and awareness of Nilgiris culture, its cultural landscape. So yeah, with this a few words, we have also recorded this talk. Give us some time. We'll I think in a matter of week or two, we will be putting it up in our YouTube channel as well. Hosting these talks as well. So thank you very much for everybody here who have taken the trouble to come online and hear this excellent talk by Dr. Vasanthan. I talk Dr. Vasanthan again. Thank you very much, sir. We are in debt and we look forward to your continued support to INTAC. So with these few words, I now sign off. I hope to see you all and more of you this Thursday. That will be for Reverend Mali's talk. And then there will also be a talk by Maya Reddy that will in all likelihood be on 28th of this month. But kindly do await the formal invitation for further details. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Geeta ma'am.